First legendaries in Shadowlands are here! Fury Warriors get back single-minded fury, while amazing new customization options are made available for Night Elves and Worgens. Newest dungeon seems to be the best so far, and a lot more to go into today's On Cooldown, your weekly WoW news show.
Hello there, we are Marcelian&Online and we do class guides and WoW news on a weekly basis, and if you're into that, be sure to drop us a like and maybe throw a comment.
Yeah man, it really helps out massively. And now, on with the show!
Hey, you! Yes, you! Come closer. Let me tell you a story. A story of legendaries and tier sets and artifact weapons that made classes super interesting. We got them, yo! Finally! There have been some data mines that showcase a bunch of spell effects from old legendaries and tier sets in the game, and we already know from the devs themselves that they are looking at these effects to be brought back in one way, shape or form. That doesn't mean that all of the legendaries in Shadowlands will be essentially old effects brought back, but I suppose it is easier to get the old ones in first and work your way up from there. On one hand, this is great because we needed tier set like effects. All baked into one weapon, no ball busting, grinding for a random chance at a random effect. Since, legendaries are targetable, at least to some extent based on what the devs mentioned. And they probably learned their lesson from the corruption vendor that got people excited that they didn't have to farm for random power gains, but instead work towards guaranteed rewards. That aside, let's actually check some of these effects. Right now, the data mines include a bunch for Death Knights, some for Mage, and a few for Warriors. I expect to see more and more data mined options in the future, hopefully, and added soon into the alpha as well. One that I am personally excited for is Crimson Rune Weapon. When a charge of Bone Shield is consumed, the cooldown of Dancing Rune Weapon is reduced by 30 seconds. When Dancing Rune Weapon fades, you get a 40% rune regeneration increase for 10 seconds. These effects are the old tier 21 2-piece and 4-piece bonuses. The effects are pretty freaking strong. If they will be implemented with these exact numbers, because there's no guarantee the old numbers will just be copy pasted into the new legendaries, that will be good. But if they are, that means that the legendaries are gonna be major powerhouses, since you get effects from 2 to 4 items baked into just one. You can also get Vampiric Aura. When you pop Vampiric Blood, all party members get 50% of the effect, which is the kind of mechanic that can make blood decays appealing in dungeons. Although in Legion this worked with Leech, bonus HP and healing is also really cool when it's on a tank that won't sacrifice a lot of DPS to get it. Stuff like Firestorm, the old tier 17 Fire Mage effect, seems to be coming back as well, which is pretty goddamn kick-ass. 5 seconds of instant pyros and flame strikes with guaranteed crits sounds like 5 seconds of almost combustion. In dungeons where fire mages suffer in AoE, especially with the ignite spread, having this could work towards addressing that issue. Some anima powers have been data mined to be legendary effects as well, which is a little bit weird. Signet of the Tormented King for Warriors makes popping Avatar, Recklessness, or Blade Storm also cast one of the other two effects at the same time. Hold up, are you saying I can pop Avatar and get Blade Storm on top? That's cool for Torghast, but what if I'm tanking? Will I just die in Blade Storm? But this also raises a bunch of other questions. Questions such as, are anima powers being tested for legendary usage? Are we fighting through the tower and eventually getting the anima powers as a blacksmithy way to forge them into legendaries? Will we eventually get all of them into legendaries? This opens up a large avenue for devs to make dozens upon dozens of legendaries, which is kind of, wishful thinking, since they could barely balance 6 to 7 Azurite traits in BFA. Sorry devs, but that's true. All of these effects and more sound pretty fucking great to have and work towards. My only concern is that they might be seen by the devs as replacements for tier sets, which in no way they are, but not really, because some of these are not new effects, and tier sets are more than just the bonuses you get. So although I am excited for these, I really hope they won't use this as an argument to not give us back tier sets later on in the expansion, because we know we are not getting any tier sets at the beginning of the expansion. which, I mean, is not super bad. The first raid was always an intro kind of thing.
Just when you thought that, man, Blizz is sure upping their game with all these customization features for characters, they raised the bar even further, and truth be told, World of Warcraft has been suffering in the RPG department for a while now. Specifically, when personalizing your character the way you want. Well, better later than never, I guess, and lo and behold, what they did for Night Elves. And you're seeing this from Wowhead because it ain't in the alpha yet, but still, just look at this. I mean, if you're going to ever play a Night Elf Druid, you'd be crazy to not add these leaves on your hair, and the face marking look absolutely gorgeous. There's new hairstyles and the eye colors. I mean, once this will be finalized, there will be no stopping you from going full Night Warrior look, but Night Elves are not all. You also get the worgens now, packed up with all new hairstyles like this one and this one. And you can also change the ear types if you ever were into bitten type ears, Mike Tyson style, or maybe big pointy ears like a true doggo who is always alert and no subtle sound escapes him. New eye color customization for worgens also make it in the new build, and man do I love the crystal eye thingy. Makes you look a bit more like you're coming from a Greyman descent. It's fair to get at least a bit excited for all these being added every time, especially since for 16 years you had jack shit to customize your characters. Transmog was the biggest form of individuality when it came to looks in WoW, and now it all makes sense on why they started allowing us to remove shoulders and chests and stuff when transmogrifying, as this whole upgrade to customization was in the works for a while now, and with all the new features, you will be much more inclined to show your new tattoos and markings and neat features like vines coming out of your hair. Or maybe you are the minimalistic type and just want to walk around with a bald head, male or female. Yes, you'll be able to do that too, as they added the baldness option to many races. And hey, who doesn't love a bald female dwarf? Am I right? I know character customization may seem minor at first glance, but do keep in mind that Shadowlands does right for most of the major features it's planning. Thorghast and recent class changes are a good indication for that. I mean, sure, there's still work to be done on Covenants and Shadow Priest and Feral, but as far as an alpha goes, it's crystal clear that they are putting work into your feedback, and character customization upgrades are just a nice to have on top of the big stuff that's brewing. It's funny thinking back on the announcement of Shadowlands at BlizzCon. Man, they had so little to show. I mean, just imagine if they had all this ready back then. The class changes, the first legendary iterations, Thorghast gameplays with animal powers, all these customization features, the dungeons. But enough about living in the past. Time for you to let us know how you feel about this in the comments. And speaking of comments, you know what time it is.
And in today's comment of the day, we have Lorx. And he said,
"You'll get what you want eventually, gorgeous flame. Falter not."
Well, Orcs, with all of this social distancing slowly going away, I want some Give me some
Oh, you want some I got you a for you.
Single-minded fury, single-minded fury, haha! Alright, settle down, nerds. We did get single-minded fury back. Yes! When Legion came out, the artifact weapons kind of gimped a lot of specs that could use different types of weapons. Frost Death Knights got their two-handers back in Shadowlands, so it only stood to reason that Fury Warriors would get their one-handers back as well. Maybe monks in the next big patch? Who knows? But indeed, Single-Minded Fury is back to appease us old-school nerds, where we could equip two one-handers and go absolutely ham. From a class, fantasy, and aesthetics field, this is great news, no doubt about it. And as long as they balance it so it's competitive with two-handers, I am super happy. You do have to keep in mind a few things, however. These things kind of stood as arguments to take one-handers out of the game initially. For Fury, One would be the loot system. The personal loot bullshit is horrible since you get items regardless of you wanting them or not, and you may not be able to trade them, again regardless of your own free will. And the same can and will be said in reverse. If you want to build your Fury Boy into equipping 2 one-handers and you only looted one so far and your guildmate loots the other, they might not be able to trade it to you. You might loot a 2-hander next and now you are screwed, because this takes us to the second thing to keep in mind. You cannot use one one-hander and one 2-hander, at least not in a balanced way that would give you either the benefits of Titan's Grip or Single-Minded Fury. And lastly, which is a less contentious thing to keep in mind, balance between the two playstyles. Luckily, the passives being in the game, which is something Frost Decay doesn't have at the moment, makes it so balancing the two playstyles can be possible. One-handers are weaker? Buff the bonus damage it does. Simple. Well, at least at first glance anyway. On top of this, Arms and Fury have received a lot of really big changes this week. We already covered Arms in a video overview which you can and should check once you are done here. Fury is looking really good at the moment as well, or at least appealing. A bunch of talents have been changed, some gone, some back, some completely different, and slowly, Shadowlands is looking like a whole new game for some, and hopefully soon, all of the classes.
Brand new dungeon added on Alpha, and you get to see it in all its glory. The Other Side is the name, and let me tell you right from the start, this is one hell of a ride. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil the story inside. Well, maybe just a tiny bit, because there are a couple of major characters we find in there. I'm just going to name them, okay? If that's too much, well, you've been warned. So, this is the dungeon where we will fight mueh'zala, who is holding one Sandia as a prisoner for some reason. You can see his big-ass silhouette right from the start of the dungeon. And you'll keep seeing him since the layout of the dungeon is very Uldirish. I mean, you go in a circle and walk into different rooms. But these rooms also have very specific visuals. One of which brings back good memories from Zul'Gurub, because we're fighting Hakar in there. Truth be told, tuning is needed as he died pretty fast alongside all the other mobs in the dungeon. Now, another room goes for a Gnomeragon / Mecha Gnome vibe, where at the end, we fight off with the Manastorm couple. Yes, good old Millhouse Manastorm is back alongside his wife, Maleficent Manastorm. Mechanics are fine, but again, lots of tuning needs done before we properly review the dungeon. Moving in the last room, we get the Arden Wield vibe and a funny debuff that will stack and eventually put you to sleep for 12 seconds if you don't continuously jump. Everybody was jumping like popcorn in there. The boss from this zone is Dealer Xiexa, who is one of those shady, weird-looking dudes you find in Oribos, you know, the vendors. Very peculiar. Once you've finished all the rooms, you fight mueh'zala, and man is he big. If the other bosses were undertuned and we had an easy time, mueh'zala seemed just right, having us wipe a couple of times before pulling off all the mechanics. So far, this is our favorite dungeon, and I can see it as being one of the most difficult in Mythic Plus, at least for pugs. The layout is great, the mechanics are nice, the atmosphere is awesome, bosses are cool, and the story is, well, you'll find out. Can you believe it? There's a lot more happening with each new Shadowlands Alpha build. I mean, last Friday we had a brand new build as we posted the video, then we got another Shadowlands Alpha build a couple of days ago with the awesome warrior changes.
A lot of warrior changes.
But there's one thing we didn't cover.
Well, it's because there's been a lot of warlock changes that have been kind of put on the alpha build with the warrior changes as well. And they actually cover some of the points that we made last time, where warlocks and most other specs go into Shadowlands without the BFA traits that actually make them functional.
Ah, yes.
So for instance, demonology, now when you summon your tyrant, you can get 5 shards. So that's kind of how demonology works now. So that's actually really good to see, because okay, sure, we get warlocks back to back 2 weeks in a row, but there's bound to be things like these for all of the specs, hopefully So it can get some of, you know, don't lose that power back with a new expansion, man.
Yes, and we're still rooting for our Shadow Priests and Feral Druids. Actually, it's really positive that we're getting all of these good changes to arms, to fury, to demonology and affliction and whatnot. This is encouraging because I'm pretty sure they're not saying anything about ferals or priest or shadow priest because it's a lot of work to be done. And once they do come out with that,
they're keeping people so on edge, man, because you see all of these changes for specs that are okay, needed changes, but they're not at the bottom of the barrel. But Shadow and Feral kind of were, and Sub-Rogue as well. It's like they're not doing anything for these specs yet. You know they cannot leave them like that. You know they might be, but come on, just give me something. Give me something.
Hey, I'll give you some. How about some more Patreons? We have to take all of our
Give me more Patreons, man. Thank you very much, guys, for supporting our channel. No, really. We really appreciate everything that you do because it makes all of this possible. It's clearly not necessary, but we really appreciate it. And if you are interested in checking what this Patreon thing is all about, you can look at the link down below in the description where you can find our Patreon, our merch, and other things that you might, you know, find to your liking.
Yes, everything is in the description. And also, thank you very much for all of our Twitch subs, our Discord members, to you, the viewer. Always, you can find us at twitch.tv/MarcelianOnline. There's a lot of dungeons to be played, a lot of raiding, a lot of Shadowlands Alpha stuff. So, you know, don't be a stranger. Follow, you know, join the chat, come chill. It's all good. And with that,
we bid you. Gotta follow up, man. That was the thing.
Have a great weekend.
Take care, everybody.
I'm slow.